Hi, this is Charlotte Pierce. I'm one of the editors of the Peeragogy Handbook, and we're here live with Fabio Cunha. I think, how do you pronounce your name? I'm sorry.
Cunha.
Cunha. Cunha. Okay. Is Fabio okay?
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Can you introduce yourself and tell us why you're interested in the Peeragogy Handbook and the project in general?
Right. Well, my name is Fabio. I am 21 years old. I am from Brazil. I live in South Brazil, and I've been teaching English now for 6 months. I came in contact with the P2P paradigm actually a few years ago. I came to know the P2P Foundation and Michel Bauwens and Elaine Vidor, I guess, is one of the philosophers of the P2P paradigm, and some others like John Husband from the hierarchy, and well, a few institutions and a few groups in the P2P paradigm. And since then, I am trying to create like a personal framework to try to apply that in creating P2P communities and networked communities here in Brazil, specifically as I'm teaching English now around language learning, English, and I'm learning Spanish and Italian. So these are the first languages I'm focusing. So I came to the Pedagogy Handbook to try to find yeah, like a learning a process framework to try to apply that here. See what can I extract from the pedagogy
Yeah.
idea.
Well, welcome to the project, and we're getting started today. Just gathering interest for people on creating a new version of the handbook. As you know, it's at peeragogy.org, peeragogy.org. It's free. It's our traditional publishing date for the print edition is on Public Domain Day, which is January 1st, 2015 this year. And we are totally open to people. You can copy the handbook, adapt it to your own uses. All we ask is if you can possibly report back to us about how you use it and what changes you have to it. It's online. It's at peeragogy.org. It's a living, breathing sort of document. So if you are interested in contributing, please reach out to us, and we will put you on as an editor. Fabio, what is the town that you're in? With city or town, or where?
Right.
Put us in context where you are.
I am in Blumenau, Santa Catarina. It's actually a city descended from the Germans, as I told you before. We have a lot of Germans here and around. I don't know. What else do you want me to talk about?
It's the south of Brazil. Is that correct?
Yes, it's the South region.
Yeah.
Brazil.
And how did you find out about the Peeragogy project? What
Well,
brought it into your consciousness?
right. Actually, I follow you guys for a few months now, but I never came in contact because I am like swamped in trying to plan my classes and all. Uh, but I think it was through the Michel Bauwens, through the P2P Foundation
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning. But I don't know. I saw on Facebook today, I guess, about the hangout. So
Mm-hmm.
I decided to connect with you.
Yeah. Well, we can just kind of continue from here. I don't think we need to really do a formal presentation for the recorded version. But yeah, if you we have a person who is on the editorial board, Fabrizio Terzi, who is in Italian, and he's been kind of running the translation aspects of the handbook. And have you been in touch with him at all, or?
No, no. Fabrizio. Let me search him.
Fabrizio Terzi. Yeah.
Oh, his name Terzi. Terzi.
Yeah. So we have a very strong intent in the Peeragogy Handbook project to do translations. I think you know.
I'm connected on Facebook.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, he's probably more on. I mean, he's probably more on Google Plus, but I'm not sure.
Right. Okay.
Right. But he has a system where you can submit the translations of the handbook in installments to the.
Right, right. I will contact him and I get updated with how the thing is going.
Right. So have you traveled much, or how did you? I mean, have you traveled to the English-speaking countries, or?
Actually not. I am very active on the internet mostly, but that's how I came to learn English. But I had a great basis on in school actually.
Mm-hmm.
The fifth grade to the to high school, so like 8 years of English in school.
And is this a type of education that's available to all Brazilians, or is it?
No, no, not at all. Actually, it's a private school, and it's as the south region of Brazil. We are like a I don't know. We have like this stereotype that the south of Brazil is really rich, more than the rest of the country. So there are a lot of really good private schools, actually.
Yeah, but
that's
have you just what's your hope for Brazil? I mean, what's your hope for your work and your what impact you're going to have on education there?
Whoa. Well,
you work in a public school, or I'm sorry.
Well, actually, that's one of my focus, right? Language learning. I also commented before that I'm animating a permaculture center here, and we are also going to work with learning there, but it's not language learning, but it's still in the same idea. I think what I mostly hope for here is to change my own world, right? I'm not trying to change like my whole city or my whole community. Yeah. You know, I'm trying to create a new environment for my learning. But I know that actually kind of ends up modifying my community, of course. But as I told you before, I'm struggling a lot with students that are very hierarchical mentally. So I'm not trying in the short run to change anything because I kind of gave up on that. You know? The mentality of the people here is very I don't know how to say, very close-minded. Yeah. It's
rigid. Yeah. Well, I think that's a problem you run into everywhere.
Yeah, I agree.
In the United States as well, you know. But
yeah,
what sort of pedagogical trends or threads do you see in the community where you're teaching?
Well, the community I teach, actually, I don't see that much because as they don't have this interactive culture, they don't know how to act. So that's one thing I've been noticing since like 5 years ago. People all want to do something, want to do something different to change their environment, and not exactly just on learning, but in every other aspect. But they just don't know how to go out of this hierarchical structure. I think, of course, I'm repeating that. So, in my view, it's the hierarchical versus the distributed system. That's the problem, you know. People
Yeah.
don't know how to act distributedly. They don't know how to act connectively. You know.
Yeah, well, I think we're still trying to figure that out in the the Peeragogy project. The participation comes and goes, but I think that we're onto something. Just how to get people sort of connected to it in the larger world is the issue, or is a challenge. Yeah.
Well, I think I would like to ask you something, and I think that will clarify some of this problem. In the pedagogy group or enterprise, what's the benefit for you guys to let everything available on the Creative Commons, on the public domain, actually? What's the you know, people don't see the advantages of that. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Right. Well, I think for me, for a lot of us, we believe that resources are distributed inequitably in the world, and we see in this internet of knowledge, you know, this distribution of knowledge, a way to get that information to people. It's really difficult to break out of your established ways of learning or living unless you have the luxury, like we do in the United States or other countries, of, you know, just kind of sitting there and experimenting with things. But we, yeah, what's in it for us?
Yeah, because that's what goes around people's mind. You know, what's in it for me? You know, in letting this knowledge of it.
Yeah, I mean it's hard because you can give something out to the world or to your community, and it doesn't have an immediate benefit to you. But you know, you can imagine it having an effect on people. People like you energize us. You know, people like you, just from southern Brazil, you know, just coming up and saying, when we had another woman from Egypt that Howard recommended to us, referred to us, and I hope she's going to be listening or coming on, but these are people who are in their communities and who are saying, you know, we'd like to tap into this global pool of knowledge, and we want to help make that happen. I mean, it's satisfying. You know, for me, it's satisfying. If I can, as a member of a dominant culture, if you will, can give that out to other people who I believe that everyone is put on the earth for a good reason, and you know, doesn't have to be in a hierarchy. They can be my boss. You know, you can be my boss. You can. You know, just to enable that, I think we will progress as a society. You know, as a global society. I think we have the illustrious Doug Breitbart on camera.
Perhaps more tarnished than illustrious, but that's okay.
Oh, Doug, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time, yeah. Are you well?
I am.
Good.
I'm well, I'm functional. It's all good.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm talking to Fabio Cunha. Did I get that right?
Yes, Fabio.
Cunha.
Fabio, good to meet you.
Caminhar.
Doug is in New Jersey. He's one of our more creative thinkers, and he's got the big picture. You know, I kind of slog through the daily details, but Doug, what have you been up to?
I've been sort of wandering the online collaborative collective hills,
Yeah.
and diving in and getting immersed in some things that involve people coming together and trying to figure out how to work and play together to effect, very much in keeping with the Peeragogy spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And
Was it productive and fruitful?
well, they're still very much ongoing, and they're thriving and growing in their own fashion. And the interesting yin and yang of it is that in all of these kinds of things, Peeragogy included, each person is responsible for it, for its creation and its growth and thrivability, or lack thereof. And each person is also an agent within it. And so there's a yin and yang of what kind of value and contribution am I bringing and can I make, and what kind of value can I derive,
Mm-hmm.
and how do I figure out that balance, and what's the secret sauce? Because ultimately the thrivability of these kinds of things is really it's really dependent on figuring that balance out and figuring out what the return and what the reward and the value exchange is.
Yeah, Fabio had just asked me, what do we get from it? Why are we doing this? And
isn't that the $1 million question?
yeah.
I
was talking about earlier about the, how to bring the pedagogical approach to a community that he's teaching, who's habituated to the hierarchical kind of teacher tells you what to think.
The hub and spoke thing.
Yeah, the hub and spoke thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
There's a member of there are strong bonds and loose bonds, weak bonds in these things, but there's a weak bond member to this who's part of the Peeragogy experiment, but also the larger Rheingold U community, named David Preston.
Yes, I was talking to him about David Preston. Yeah.
Yeah, and David is the progenitor of open source education, and the key for him in his sort of taking behind the chain link fence traditional English class situation and turning it into a learning community and activating all the individual students as contributing members and all of that really involved first trusting that the students, if given responsibility for their own learning experience, would rise to the challenge, which is a big leap for a lot of teachers. And then second of all, following through with that, meaning actually putting them in charge of their own learning experience. So what that meant in his case was saying the curriculum is the starting line for your learning journey, not the end point to test. And so we have to cover all of...
That's scary for people.
Well, sure. And
Fabio teaches adults, but you might as well be a kid when you're presented with a unique learning experience.
Sure. And part of it is, and this is sort of circumstantially where there's the the first tier challenge, and then there's the N tier challenge. The first tier challenge is presuming that all of the students that you're dealing with, regardless of demographic or profile, have the resources and means to go online, have the minimum fluency and literacy to use a computer and to access the internet. That if they have those things as a minimum, then you really can throw them in the deep end, and you set them up and teach them how to do their own blogs, and you set them up on how to access the class blog, and you throw them in the deep water and really require them to go online and to become masters of posting and checking each other's postings and commenting and creating things and researching things and bringing them back to the larger collective, and all of those things of and in social media, and the availability of the resource pool online.
Now, Fabio, do your students have access to these resources, or what is the actual state of the technology there?
No, yeah, they have access. Actually, I have a group of polyglots here in my city, which I used as a means to gather students to chat and all. But I don't know, the participation is low. I reinforced the idea of several free, libre, open platforms and resources and libraries and all. I have actually like a Delicious account where I gather platforms and resources and books and PDFs and all.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, they don't seem to that's one thing I was going to comment. They seem to don't have so much interest because they don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was trying to do is like create a map, create
Mm-hmm.
an overview of the course, and let them travel through the map.
Well,
walk.
Fabio, how did you come to this awareness
Of what?
of
The low participation.
How to reach out to the world and take advantage of these this knowledge that's out there?
Well, actually, since I was in high school, I have this awareness because I grew up in this era, right? I'm 20. I'm 21. I grew up not watching TV, but on YouTube. So it's like one of my great teachers is Timothy Leary. I don't know if you guys know about him. Timothy Leary was a psychologist, and he's one of my gurus because he taught me all of that, and he lived in like the 60s. He taught me to tune in and the channels, and it's like for me it's my reality, but it's hard to communicate this to other people who are not from this, and even from people who are in my age, at my age. Some people who they just bought into the old paradigm. I don't know. Even young people, they just see the internet as the new telephone. I don't know, the new television.
Do you feel like you've reached one person or one student?
I reached people who are not directly local students of mine. People who are from the internet, who are from these online communities.
Yeah.
But actually, yeah, I've been teaching for 6 months, so my work is very little for now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on this map I told you, and I'm working on a method to gamify the learning experience, to bring that to a game situation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Doug, you have some friends who are in the gamification.
Yeah, there are a bunch of people that, there are a bunch of people that I know that are in that space, but I think the answer is closer to home, and and this is now me, so I'm not going to invoke anybody else in my thinking around this, but there seem to be, my sense and experience is there are two vectors that map to getting people hooked, engaged, and one of them is a way in from a literacies standpoint, from a practices how-to standpoint, and the other is sort of an extrapolation, an educational extrapolation of the concept of unconditional love, which is, loving somebody unconditionally means loving them in the way they want to be loved, not the way you want to love them.
Mm.
And so in a class of 15 people, each one of those individuals has their own personal profile in terms of mediums and manipulatives and channels in and channels out, things that are easier, things that are harder, things that are more compelling for them, things that are less compelling for them in terms of accessibility, transparency, and ability to connect, right? So you have this sort of, completely variable reality on the receiving end, and the industrial, post-industrial age educational system treats them all as commoditized resources, so everybody gets the same thing, and they're expected to adapt accordingly, and so you have a curve. People fail, and people are A students, and there's everybody falls in between based on the degree to which their perceptual setup, frame, and modality of learning on a metacognitive level, right, matches the system or doesn't.
Are you following him, Fabio?
How am I doing?
Yes, I
Okay.
guess so.
Well, I figure if you're reading Timothy Leary, then you should be able to, you should be able to keep up with me.
Well,
Now, if you would invoke Terence McKenna, I might be coming at this from a completely different place.
At a cognitive level. Oh my God.
But if you're dealing with any kind of older demographic that are not native, they may be quasi-fluent, but they're not native to this technology, then I believe it's really about going back to the basics. And so it's taking them through the process of everybody setting up their own personal blog as part of the course.
Mm-hmm. And then they learn so many things as a result in the process of doing that.
Just in the act of doing that, and when you're doing that, find out who the overachievers are who take to it immediately, and see who the laggards are who are just literally have huge.
And have the overachievers teach the laggards.
Yeah, you want to sort of profile and identify where each individual is at in the face of that exercise, and then you want to start to create the team dynamic, which is, to Charlotte's point, you're going to have a couple of alphas that are still bright and alive from the neck up and engage in new stuff and are learners, organic learners, and you're gonna set it up so that there's an open forum and mechanism for people to collect and chat together synchronously or asynchronously, right? But for people to come together and for the overachievers to lead the others and to help the others, and start with those kinds of baby steps and afford. It's about learning them up. It's about the basic literacies. It's really easy for us, the global us that are already in this flow and living in this in a virtual space as part of our day-to-day existence, to just really take for granted how unbelievably scary this technology and the online world can be for people that don't know. And if you think about an adult who 5-10 years ago was afraid to touch the keyboard because they'd break it, right? So translate that to somebody who's afraid to enter or post or push a button because they're afraid they're going to do something or post something or affect something in a way that they don't know whether it's going to be okay or not.
That is such a critical point.
Give them permission to go online, to make messes, to fuck up, to screw up, to construct a post and have it not go anywhere and go, where did it go? And I lost it. And so recompose it. And what are the steps you took? And post that and share that. Create a real team community vibe around those learnings, and make the basics of that. Creating a web page. How do you comment on somebody's web page? How do you post pictures? How do you post, a post that has graphic elements in it? How do you find a picture using Google Images and then copy that and paste that, right? All that basic stuff. See whether starting there will start to reveal and open up, where people are at and where they're living. Mm-hmm. And then it gives you a basis and gives you some data reference to see where they're at relative to the interface of the technology as a threshold issue. And then start asking questions. I mean, that's really the biggest thing, I think. That's the easiest way to get traction. Once you've gotten them sort of over the hump of doing it, of interacting with each other and engaging online, start putting up questions that requires them to declare themselves and give answers.
And that may take a long time.
And and it may take some time to go through these preliminary steps. But once you've asked questions and you've gotten them to give some answers, and if your questions are sort of tilt toward the provocative side, which is, what's something you've always wanted to do you've never done, and why?
And why should someone in Boston, Massachusetts, live in a 3,000 square foot house when I don't have anything? That's something that they can put out to the world and challenge us to answer.
Because the questions map to them finding their voice, and the questions map to them realizing that they don't have to have those thoughts, judgments, ideas, fears, beliefs, or takes, or perceptions about things within the privacy of the four corners of their heads.
And their point of view is completely valid.
It's empowering and validating them to sort of express themselves and to use this medium to publish, and then to require each of the others in the class to go to each student's web page, to go ahead and read and comment, to post.
That includes us. We have to read what their opinions are. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I follow. I think I just want to comment something. I thought about the accessibility to these platforms when I started doing this private classes, because I started teaching at a private school. So they have the methodology all done. And when I started doing private classes, I said to myself, well, I'm going to create some sort of my own methodology to use this P2P paradigm and this networks paradigm, which I study and I like, and I think it's a nice thing, a nice next step. And the first thing I noticed is that of the accessibility. So well, I think I was kind of afraid at first, because they come to me looking for an English class, an English teacher, and like a traditional English teacher, a teacher which has a material, a course, a set of exercises readily available for them to practice at each class, and a homework. And it's clearly that they are in this hierarchical framework, so I was kind of afraid because of that. So I didn't want to turn like a language class into a IT class, into an informatics class. So I just kind of left that to the background, because I still create these dynamics, these class dynamics for them. And I'm not comfortable with that, because I'm directing everything, modeling as one big student, the class. and it's very difficult. It's very difficult because I'm really blocking the flux of information for them in this sense. I don't know. I feel like I'm really reducing the thing I wanted to do in the first place. You know?
Well, the bottom line is that you have to trust that if you take them off the cliff of the spoken hub, old model, you have to trust two things. One, that you can make it safe and okay for them, which you can. And two, that they'll figure it out. Like, they'll actually rise to the challenge if you put them in the driver's seat and give them the context and the situation and circumstance to learn. And that was really, I believe, the key sort of courage that made David my hero in terms of what he did, because he didn't know what it was going to look like on the other side of doing that. He didn't know what the class was going to become. He didn't know how it was going to go. He didn't know whether they were going to learn or if they were going to learn or how they were going to learn and master the curriculum they had to master. He didn't know what was going to happen. He didn't perceive himself as in a position of control anymore, but he also recognized that at the end of the day, if he honored the commitment to putting the reins of their own learning experience in their hands, that if he didn't fake it, if he didn't suggest he was going to do that and then not, which is often what happens, right? It's, I'm going to sell you a bill of goods to get you interested, but then I'm going to put you back in the old thing of perform, right? Learn and perform according to what I tell you. But if you literally make it in, their engagement, and you say, so in the context of, learning a language, right? How many different ways can people learn a new language? Just that question alone, think about that for a second in the context of all the resources that are available online and all of the methodologies and all of the doctrinaire stuff in terms of how languages are taught, but also how many ways is it possible to pick stuff up? And just on the basis of that question and giving them a treasure hunt and saying, I want you to go out and find every freaking free language learning resource that you can find on the internet and come back with the top 5 that you found the most effective for you based on trying them, because if they're free and you can go ahead and do a bunch of lessons and see how it feels. And come back to me. And let's graph that as a class and see what the consensus is, whether people even found the same resources, and if they did, what rises to the top of the pecking order. Right? You've got a lot of stuff going on in that. You've got them taking a lesson or 2 or 5, and you can say, if it's a free platform, then I want you to take at least the first 5 or 10 lessons.
Does that resonate with you, Fabio?
Right, of course. Actually, I suggest a few platforms when they start, and a few that I use actually. So because what I know that the peer-to-peer paradigm is about is not this top-bottom idea. So I'm not trying to do that. I'm just studying languages. I'm learning Spanish and I'm starting to learn Italian. So I'm using my methodology as a starting point to people who want to follow me or whatever, or to copy my method or to resonate with my methodology. I think I have a lot of things to do and a lot of things going on already, but it's nice to see that people are doing the same thing and are working on the same ideas, the P2P ideas.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for the ideas. They're really cool.
Yeah, one thing that David found, and that I think is fortunately or unfortunately true of this kind of approach to teaching or to facilitating, is that if the student isn't part of the creative process of the methodology or the practice or the process, if they're not part of figuring it out, they don't have ownership of it, and the interest flags or drops off completely. And David found that out because he had a brilliant first-year class that developed and invented some extraordinary stuff, you know, games and projects and all sorts of things that were just mind-blowing. And they were rock stars in how they went after them and realized the vision of them. And then the second year rolled around, and one or two of those he thought he'd make features or fixtures of the course. And he tried introducing the first one, and it like laid an egg. And the reason it laid an egg wasn't because it wasn't brilliant in the context and as the creative output of the first year class. The reason it laid an egg was because the second year class had nothing to do with its creation. And it had absolutely no correlation or meaning for them as something that was fully formed and then plopped in front of them and said, here, this is what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. So the part of it when you say you're taking your methodology and sort of feeding that to them, see whether you can reverse calculate and say, how can you have them discover your methodology as their own? And that's a little different.
Because they're really what it's all about, you know.
Right.
That's a tricky thing, because you figure something out and it worked for you, and it's like, of course it's going to work for everybody else. But that's that unconditional love thing. Maybe, but part of what made it work for you was the process of figuring out what worked for you. And if you just present them with the result, they don't have any participation in that the figuring out part.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No, I think it comes back to what you talked about, trust, because it's exactly that. The learning process took place where I learned how I learn things, you know, and that was my learning process. So learning a language became easy, but I come to class and I present them the first classes as programming classes, so we can program the map of the learning process. But they, you know, I present my methodology as a model, you know, as an example. I don't know. Maybe that just kills the interest. I don't know, but they look at me like, okay, I don't know how to start.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's scary. It's scary.
Well, it's scary, and also some of them may not relate. You know, some of them may not be able to process that information because just cognitively they're not set up that way. You know, in my virtual community wanderings, you know, a big part of my focus has always been sort of the onboarding process, because communities inadvertently ghettoize themselves because of the way they have new methods, new members come in, right?
Do you know what he means by ghettoizing, Fabio?
No.
Well, they create a very limited sort of path to entry, right, for people to come in, and they end up with a homogeneous population that excludes a lot of people that could have brought real value and diversity and richness to the community, but because those people couldn't get past the methodology for entering and for becoming a member, they're excluded. Right? And so, like, you know, a particular community had an extensive questionnaire at the front end. Well, guess what? There are some really brilliant PhD people I know that can't stand and hate questionnaires. They see a questionnaire and they go, fuck this, I'm not interested in this. Right? And there's somebody else who may be willing to do a questionnaire but isn't good doing it themselves, staring at a form. They need a human being reading them the questions and helping elicit the answers. Right? And another person may not be questionnaire oriented at all, but may be very, very open to you know, filling out a sort of almost a sort of affinity thing that isn't about what's your name and address and all that stuff of a questionnaire entry path, but you know, do you like vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream? Do you like this? Do you like that? Do you like this? Do you like that? And for people that are anathema to fill in personal profile stuff, they'll fill that out for hours. They're like perfectly game to do that. And so coming up with different modalities for people to play, right, is about making sure you have all sorts of different ways for people to play. And so if you have an idea in your head of a methodology for learning language, you're creating a very small, narrow doorway that some people will fit through and have no problem with, but a bunch of people may not be able to even see the opening.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right. Yeah, I try to not do that, of course, but
It's tricky.
of course. But I work with the Polyglot Club. I don't know if you guys know about that.
What is
It's
it?
the Polyglot Club.
Is that an international organization, or?
Yes, it started in Paris, and there are a lot of groups here in Brazil, and I decided to start one. I start one here in Blumenau, and it's one of the language exchange communities, one of the biggest in the world, you know. And they
Right.
are they follow the same idea. They are open communities in the sense that everybody can start their own. And here in Brazil, we are connecting the organizers of each polyglot club into a bigger group, a organizers group, and you know. It's just starting to happen, you know. The people are starting to connect themselves with each other at the same idea, and I try to use that, the Polyglot Club, as one of the platforms for my students to learn languages. As one of the platforms they can find partners to chat either online or offline or physically, you know. And I schedule and I set up meetings for the group, and you know, it's slowly starting. And
Do
I
you feel
think what
like
you
it
said.
has momentum, or it's got a forward motion?
Um, Actually, I don't know. It's very the interaction is very. It's mostly online because we have like monthly meetings once a month, and people are connecting slowly. I don't know. I every meeting we had different people. That's nice, but you know, the frequency is not increasing so much. I don't know if that's what you meant by your
Right.
question. But that's one of the things I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to connect people to that idea, to the community idea, not the self-learner. That they are going to just stay at home and read
Mm-hmm.
books and read websites and you know
No,
listen to.
Fabio, why do they want to learn English?
Yes, that's one of the first questions I asked them actually. Why do they want to learn English? And well, some of them want to learn for a real purpose, let's call it that, because some of them have like plans of working abroad or traveling abroad, and but I would say most of them just want to learn because English is a good language to know. It's important for your career. It's, you know, my parents told me to, or something like that. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. It comes back to that hierarchical mentality I talked about, because that's the only explanation I found. People look at me and, oh, I want to learn because it's an important language to learn, to know. And I say to them, okay, but what are you going to do with that? You know, how are you going to use English? And I have students at the school I teach, like advanced students, and I come to them and I ask, okay, do you use Facebook in English? And they, oh no, of course not. Then what? Why? It's like You don't even practice using Facebook. You know, why? How do you practice? How do you use the language? And most of them don't know. You know, most of them don't want to do anything with that. They just want to know the language, and it's really it's fun because they don't know that language is a tool to do something, to transmit a meaning or a message. You know, and it's what I thought about yesterday. Like I discovered that most of my students don't have anything to say. You know, and that's the real meaning.
How old are they?
Between 20 and 30, I don't know. Most of them are between that range. I don't know. I may be overreacting, but it's really awkward for me because I started to think that was something I've been doing. You know, oh, of course I've been doing something wrong. I'm not posing the correct questions to them, but in the end, I just kind of comfort myself in knowing that they are stupid or something. But
Well, are they from, well-resourced families, or are they from, have they been traveled, or are they, where are they coming from?
I guess most of them come from wealthy families, from good families,
But not from,
because that's the standard here in the city, in the state. You know, we have as I told you, we are the rich part of the country. You know, like we have like the traditional families, and the families here don't spend money; they just earn money. You know, so they just accumulate. You know, and yeah, I don't know. Of course, that's one of the things I think about the profile of my students, right? The how their background, and I don't know. I comforted myself in knowing in thinking that I didn't find the correct students. I guess I don't know. Because, no,
well,
I'm just
everyone is valid in the international, world community. I think it's just, what you've picked up as you've grown up.
right. I think I create many expectations of the students to rise into my level at the first moment, you know, and of course they won't know how to, for example, participate in a MOOC, you know, in a massive online course. I try to create a course in a Moodle platform to gather my students with other students, online students, maybe English speaking who would like to learn Portuguese and vice versa. And most of my students didn't connect, you know, and I was like, okay, if you guys have any questions, you can come to me. You know, I help you through the process of going to the platform and teaching that, you know, and they don't seem to have interested on that. They I don't know if that the framework they have in mind is that these things are not classes. You know, the classes is when I'm with them in the room saying something in front of them. You know, that's the class for them, I guess.
Yeah, David described the first time he turned to the class and he said, "So you guys figure out what you're doing here," and walked out.
That's great. I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
And he said, "You better figure it out, because if you don't figure it out, you're going to fail." And I don't think you really want to do that. And I'm interested in your being successful because I don't keep my job unless you succeed. So, figure it out.
Yeah.
But I'm a facilitator. I'm here to help you figure out how you're going to learn this. And
but
I'm not going to teach you or provide you with spoon feeding. I'm not going to treat you like a child. I'm going to treat you like an adult. And this is your opportunity. This is your experience. This is your interest in learning how to speak this language. How are you going to figure that out?
And did they?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely they did. I mean, were there, out of the class size was staggering, but out of the class size, are there a couple of kids that bailed, that headed for the exit and said, I don't understand this, I can't relate to this, I'm out of here? Yeah, but most of them hung in, and the vast majority hung in and took care of each other. And the
What
kids
do
that
you think,
rose to the
Fabio,
challenge.
what do you think would happen if you said that to your students?
Yeah, that was I thought before when I said I was afraid of doing something like that, because I think they would start asking questions, but I think at the end of the day they would think that I don't know. I maybe just create fantasizing, but I think they would not think at that day as a productive day, maybe.
Mhm.
Well, so that's about you transposing what you believe they're going to judge you as.
Right.
That has to do with your fear, not their experience. That's not about them, that's about you, right? But if you transcend your fear, then the question is, what are they going to do? And if you set up the dynamic and the situation and circumstance where they have to figure it out, and they've got a time specific, date specific, here's your mission, folks. You're going to have an exchange with each other, and you're going to have to demonstrate in that exchange 50 vocabulary words. And each one of you are going to have to do that in a group setting that's going to be unstructured, and you've got exactly 2 weeks to figure that out. If you don't, you fail. So how do you want to go about that?
Right. Right. Yeah, I think I would have to work on setting the objective, right? And
Right? I mean, you set the target and you go, how you get there, up to you. Can you help each other? Absolutely.
And
right,
some of them are going to rise to the occasion, and some of them are going to fail. I mean, it's
And mind you, it's over enough of a period of time so that you have intermediary opportunities to check in. You have opportunities to find out, is anybody feeling like they got dropped off a cliff? Is anybody feeling left out? Is anybody feeling, like they can help others, or that, they've got a handle on this, they can turn around and help others? And you start facilitating them becoming a learning community.
right, right.
And you know what? They'll surprise you.
well, they did with
And
David.
it only takes one or two alphas to transform the whole class.
Yeah, they're going to say, look, this is what we have to do.
And
Yeah.
now you're saying things to them like after they've started, you're saying things like, now, so and so, so and so, so and so, I saw their blog posts, and it's like, they're getting there. They're beginning to write sentences and post videos of them saying things and having exchanges and whatever. And, I don't see this one, this one, this one, this, and this one. Guess what? If one of you fails, all of you fail. So you folks that haven't posted anything and aren't doing anything, you folks that are posting and doing great, you need to help each other. You're a community.
How do you think that would work?
What are you going to do to help those people get on board here? Because right now they got nothing. And
Can
they
you
fail,
see that
you fail.
working in your classes, Fabio?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Can you see that working, that sort of approach working in your classes?
Yeah, probably, actually. I think it is clear that the role is not as the teacher, but as the facilitator, right? And
Correct.
that's the rule that has to be made clear in their minds, right? And I think
You're there to help them succeed.
And it empowers them. They are the ones that are finding the way.
Right. Well, thanks very much, guys. I think that really helps. I'm trying to use, as I said before, the gamification method and some of the I don't know framework I'm creating for myself for my language learning, and I'll try to adapt this approach to my classes to that as the the how can I say, pose a quest for them, for them to find out the answer.
Well, we'll probably wrap up here. But
Yes, I have to go.
I have to go too. And it's really it expands our universe to talk to you, Fabio.
Nice, nice. I can say the
It really
same.
does. I mean, we are living in our own little bubble here. So thank you very much, and I'm going to stop the broadcast, and hopefully we'll tune in next week at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I think still, and we'll talk to everyone again. Thanks.